Thank you for tuning in. Today I'm going to show you how to get the most out of Fantasy Basketball Wizard and how I use it to get the most out of Fantasy Basketball Wizard and how it helps me win and become a much better team than I could be without it. So let's start with an overview of the features that Fantasy Basketball Wizard provides. This feature is called Me vs. League. We have Wizard Ad Tracker that shows you how many ads your opponents have used. We have matchups projections, so you can see how you're slated to do against your opponent this week based on the number of games that each of your players has for that given week and what their averages are. And then to top it off, we have games remaining for all players kind of scattered throughout the app. So if you go to the players page, the research page, the transaction trends, my team, etc., we give you visual representation for how many games each player has this week. So now that we've gone over all the different features, let's talk about one of the main features. This is Me vs. League. What Me vs. League does is help you compare your team to the rest of the league. So there's a few ways to compare your team. The first way is just the current week's totals. So as of right now, in week 7, it's Monday. This is how I would be doing against each of these teams in the league. So if I was playing, for example, Miles over here, I would be beating him 7-2. He'd be beating me in free throw percentage, which is why it's red. The redder it is, the worse you're losing. The greener it is, the better you're doing in terms of winning. You can see how any team is doing this week. So let's go to Miles and see that it's still early, so it looks bad. If you want to see what an actual week looks like, you can go back to any week from this season. So if I go to week 6, I see, again, Miles didn't do too great. But if I go to a different team, you see that, some teams I would have beat 6-3, and some teams I would have lost 7-2. This is a good way to see how you're doing this week against everybody. But what about if you want to see on average per game, how do you do against everybody? So I'll go to season average here. This basically adds up all your players' averages and adds up everybody else's players' averages and puts it together and gives you a breakdown that way. So now you can see on average how you do against everybody else. Let's turn on these ranks and it'll show you what you're ranked. I am the fourth best assist team on average, the worst three-point shooting team by average, the fifth best turnover team, fifth best steals team, the second best blocks team, etc. So you can see which categories you're not so good at and which categories you are good at. You can adjust your team that way or see what type of players you need to stream in order to keep up. You can do the same thing for the last 14-day averages, last 30 days, and last 7 days averages and see how that changes. If your team has been doing good lately, your 30-day average might look better than your season-long average. And in my case, it does look better, as I have more green in the last 30-day averages than I do in the whole season. You can also choose to include or exclude players who are on the IL. So for me, I don't have any players on the IL, so my team actually gets worse if I include IL players because I don't have any players on the IL. We also support points league, so let's go to a points league here. How we're doing in this league, and you'll be able to compare. Notice Yahoo does show you an average that they already have, or sorry, a projection that they already have. And this projection is a little bit misleading because if you haven't set your lineup for the rest of the week, it takes that into account. So, for example, if you bench all your players from tomorrow onwards, it literally won't add anything to the projections. This is where Wizard comes in. It allows you to choose how many games go into the projection. So, if I know Jalen Brunson's going to miss a game this week, or let's say I know he's going to miss 2 games, I can just change this to 2 and see how does that affect my projection against my opponent. In this case, I think I'm in good shape. It shouldn't be a big deal. So I know I have a decent chance to win this matchup. You can do the same thing for categories leagues. I think it's a little bit more powerful for categories leagues because it's not just as much usage and just a single points total. You can actually see how certain players missing games affects certain categories. So for example, I know that it looks like steals is going to be close. So what if Amin Thompson only has 1 game this week? Well, I actually end up losing steals because he missed 2 games. So you can mess around with the numbers in any way, shape, or form, and tune your projections to look the way you want them to look. Currently, they're based on season averages by default, but you can come in here and change it. Okay, how does it look based on the last 30 days of averages? So this is an extremely powerful feature when you want to decide who to stream, or if you need to drop somebody, or whether you should bench someone at the end of the week or something like that. It kind of gives you everything you need to know in order for you to make informed decisions. Let's go back to the My Team page where you have this quick start. You're able to start your players for all your other leagues with the click of a button. You can just press Start All Leagues for 12-2, and it'll start all your players. This is super useful, so you don't have to go to each league and press the Start Active Players manually or set your lineup manually. It saves you a lot of time. Let's jump over to ESPN. We do support ESPN, and you can see here's the ESPN Fantasy Cast page. Games remaining are showing here, and games remaining also show right here. We also have the Miiverse League existing in ESPN. It works the same way as it does on Yahoo. So you can go back to a previous week and see how did you do in a previous week. This team did not do very good, as you can see. Furthermore, if you go to the box score page, you can see your matchups projections the same way that you can in Yahoo. You can also adjust the number of games. You can adjust what type of averages to use in your projections, and it provides you the same functionality that you would see in Yahoo and gives you the ability to make educated decisions for streaming, benching, and everything in between. I hope you found this useful, and thank you so much for being a user of Fantasy Basketball Wizard.